Talk with you today about coronavirus. I know that you are hearing about it on the 24/7 news cycle, and perhaps you're wondering what could this lady possibly add to everything that we've already heard and read and listened to. Because I am a psychic and a medium, I have some other thoughts and some things that have occurred to me that I want to share with you. And there's some things that perhaps you haven't heard about before, so I'm going to just talk with you about them today. And the first thing I want to mention is, the question that's on everyone's mind: how long is this going to go on? And let's talk about here in the United States. Here in the United States, 5 to 7% of the population has been infected so far with coronavirus. We need to get to a level of 60 to 70%, that's 60 or 70%, to develop herd immunity or through a vaccine. So think about it this way. We've already 5 to 7% of our population's been infected. That is a very small number compared to the 60 to 70% figure that we've got to get to. We've got to go up by a factor of at least 10 times to get to that level. So for that reason, I don't think we're going to be there anytime soon. And there's another reason for that. Yes, we may get a vaccine sooner than some of the predictions are saying, but there's something else that's unique here in the United States, and that is that Americans have certain feelings about their civil liberties. And as a result of that, they don't necessarily listen to various authorities. It's not like in Asia where everyone is told to quarantine and they all quarantine. Everyone is told to wear a mask and they all wear a mask. Here in the United States, a lot of issues are politicized, and Americans feel very strongly about their civil liberties and making their own decisions. And because of that, I think it's much tougher to enforce what needs to be done, probably under the current circumstances. So the question of when do we get back to normal? Well, I don't think there's going to be a normal like we can refer to, over the past 5 or 10 years. I don't think we're going back to that. We're going to something new. Just like after 9/11, we went into a new world. We're going into a new world post-COVID-19. And what's that likely to look like? So we're already seeing some of the changes and some of the effects. They're not necessarily brought on by COVID-19. We can attribute them to COVID-19, but it's almost, as I've talked about before, a reset that the universe has imposed on us with certain ideas about how we should live and behave and how society should be structured. So there are two things going on at the same time that I find to be highly unusual, and I don't have any reference for this over any other previous time in history. And that is that, on one hand, we've been thrown back 50 years. Think about 50 years ago and what the world looked like. Family values were very important. People all had dinner together. They lived in neighborhoods. You might see children riding their bikes together in a neighborhood. You might see neighbors talking to each other. And it was a much slower pace of life, and there were fewer options, which is one of the reasons that the pace of life was so much slower. People weren't flying all over the world. The world wasn't open at that point. There were fewer options for everything. Back then, there were 3 options for ice cream. 4 if you really wanted to, get excited about things. It was vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and then there was Neapolitan. So, we've come a long way since then. So in some respects, we've been thrown back to that period of 50 years ago, the family values. People are spending much more time at home, not necessarily because they want to, but that's what's happening. They're spending time in their neighborhoods. They're taking walks. They're getting outdoors. Their families are going on walks together. The parents might be walking. The kids might be riding bikes. Kids might be riding bikes with other neighborhood kids. I mean, when was the last time you saw that? Probably never if you're under a certain age. These are all things that when I was growing up were normal. They certainly haven't been normal over the last 20 or more years, but they are looking very normal right now. There's this throwback to family values, neighborhoods, community that so many people were really begging for in their hearts. And we're starting to see some of that now. That is going to continue. People are going to continue to move out of cities. They're not interested in the crowds, they're not interested in the noise, the density, and taxes, of course, are going to be going up there. And there may not be as many options for entertainment there as there was initially, entertainment and jobs, because some of these institutions are going to be shut down, the not-for-profits especially. I don't know about you, but every day I wake up and I check my email, and there are 5 to 10 pleas for money from not-for-profits. Now, many of those not-for-profits may restructure themselves so they don't have the plant and equipment that creates so much overhead and the staff. But not all of them are going to be doing that. But in major cities, a lot of those entertainment options that are brought to you by not-for-profits are not going to be there in the future. So some of those things that brought people to the cities are not going to be there. The capital is not going to be there to allow these institutions to go on. So, and the same thing for businesses. Many people were drawn to cities because that's where the jobs were. But if we're going to a virtual society, then that's not necessarily necessary. You already see it in places like New York and San Francisco. So, and some other cities too, where people are moving out of the cities. So there's that trend in place. And at the same time that we're going back 50 years, we're also going forward 50 years into a virtual world. And, you could blame COVID for this, but again, I think that there's something larger going on, a reset that's been created by the universe, and that has forced us to jump forward in time 50 years and live a different way in a virtual world. Now, this is very odd, to be forward 50 years and back 50 years at the same time. I can't find any precedent for it in history. The only thing I can think of, it almost seems like some dystopian, futuristic society, where people are relating through their computers at the same time that they're taking a bike ride in their neighborhood. It's very strange. So those trends, both of them, are going to continue. So what else is changing, and what else is going to be different? We're also going to continue with, I believe, and I hope I'm wrong, but societal upheaval because of the disparities in social classes, and that includes disparities in wealth, and income, but also other disparities. So, in terms of what resources are available to you, the best possible case would be that humanity all works together for this. But again, we get back to how individuals here in the United States, if you're listening to this and you're not in the United States, you may have a different outlook for your country. But here in the United States, because civil liberties are taken so seriously by individuals, this could lead to continued unrest, societal unrest and upheaval. Because, if people are angry, that's a flashpoint, and that allows them to organize as communities and to use that as a platform. So that's something that I'm concerned about, concerned that it could continue. When do we get a relief from the coronavirus? Some people are saying, some of the scientific experts are saying that, we could have a vaccination sooner than the usual time frame, which is, usually up to 5 years. I don't think it's going to be, I think we're going to be with this for a while. I think we're going to learn to be with it as best as we can, but, be experiencing chaos as a result of that and other disruptions in the society for some time. We are going to get a break late December of 2020, but the outlook going forward from there is a little murky because a lot of things are in play, and there are some large cycles that are in play that could affect us until 2024 or 2025. We don't know yet how that's all going to shake out, but it's something that we have to keep in mind. So those are my latest thoughts on coronavirus and the outlook. I hope I'm wrong about some of these things. That would be the best news possible, to be wrong on some of these. I hope, the world gets righted, sooner. And but we'll all see what happens. In the meantime, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe, hit the bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are released. And I will continue to provide you with fresh content, and I hope you find it interesting. And if you do, you'll subscribe and stay with these videos. And I do them for you as a teaching option for myself, and education option for you. I mean, education is so important. That's how all of us hopefully learn to better ourselves and do things. So I will continue to provide these videos, and I thank you for joining me today.